Everything starts with one light. The sun is one light. One of the secrets of becoming a better artist is to follow the light and observe it. If you do so well, you will begin to discover how interesting and how everything starts with one light. I take in light daily, and in so many ways, the literal idea of light and the philosophical idea of it, when understood properly, tend to have a very profound effect on the artist and the photographer in general. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you 4 ways to use one light. Light is at the base of what we currently observe, or what we call to be our objective reality at the moment. Without light, we really cannot see anything, and without sight, it's almost like existence is not present. Light is at the base of everything. On a more universal level, the light and the energy that comes in from the sun is really what keeps us alive on Earth today. And in photography, it's basically the source of everything. To really understand photography, you want to understand light. If you even look at the light of the sun, it shines on us in certain ways, and we observe every other thing from this perspective. We look at each other, we look at friends, we look at nature, we look at everything around us just based off of how the sun lights us, and that is just one light. These light setups are somewhat what I would call the foundational one light setups that you can actually build on to develop some of the most complex light setups that you can see out there. If you watch movies, if you see the pictures of a lot of professional photographers, most of those images, by the time you break them down, actually come down to these 4 styles of putting light together. Right now, I'd like to define what is the broad and narrow side of the face. Now, the broad side of the face is the side of the face that shows more from the perspective of the camera. In the broad side of the face, you can see the eyes, you can see the ears, you can see the more of that side of that person's face. It's either their right face or the left side of their face or their right side. You can actually see more of it. The side that you can see more of is what you call the broad side. However, the side that you can see less of, where you just see the eye at the edge and you can't see the ears and you can't see any of the part of the face, is what you call the narrow side. So in broad lighting, you're going to take the light and you're going to light and find a way to put it on the broad side, to shine on the broad side of the face from the perspective of the camera. So when you take the camera and you take the subject and you put the subject in front of the camera and you ask the subject to shift their face to the edge and have a broad side, when you see that broad side, you then take the light and put it on where the broad side is. In this camera right now, as you can see right here on this shot, the light is coming from this side. So if I kind of like turn, like now I'm actually lighting in a way my broad side. So broad lighting is when you actually light your broad side. You can actually add to it, you can build on this light if you want to add to it, but you should try and shoot some portraits using the broad lighting style. You can add to it by adding bounce cards or fills or fill cards or reflectors. Add to actually fill in some of the shadows that have been created, from that light setup. So with broad lighting, because you can show more of the person's face, you're showing more detail about the person. So this lighting kind of makes it less dramatic in a sense. The light is showing more of the face, so it widens the face up and you can see detail about the person's face. Once you put that light in, there will be shadows definitely created, in some places. So you can begin to experiment with fill light. Fill light basically it means that you have to have a light source that can fill up some of those shadows that are really, really dark just by creating that light setup. So you can do that with a bounce card, maybe like a white bounce card or a reflector, to actually fill up that. You can start to experiment with that because you're still using one light, but then you're creating more light sources by bouncing the light off of different surfaces to actually fill up those shadows that are in the image. So I would say that you should just go try practice, put the light in this way and try to fill up the shadows in different areas and actually create a very interesting portrait using broad lighting. I actually personally create a lot of portraits. A lot of my work actually comes with one light. I actually shoot most of my work with one light. What I end up doing is that I'm filling up the shadows from different angles. I have V-flats, I have bounce cards, I have reflectors, I have a lot of white around depending on the type of shoot that I'm doing, and I kind of like fill up a lot of space as well. The next one we're going to be talking about is narrow lighting. Narrow lighting is basically when you place the light in such a way that it lights only the narrow side of the face. So if I have my face facing you right now and I divide it into two and I turn my head to this side a bit. Now this is my broad side, so you can see the broad side of my face right now. So if I take the light and light the narrow side without lighting the broad side, and it's just the narrow side that has light on it, that is what a situation where we would call narrow lighting. Now in narrow lighting, it's basically lighting that narrow side of the face. It creates a lot of drama, it creates a lot of mystery. You can use these shots in places where you want to say less about the person and just give, you know, an interesting view. It's a very very stylistic way of lighting. As I said earlier, you can still fill up these lights from different angles to actually fill up some of those shadows and actually create a very interesting portrait using this one light setup. In narrow lighting, also some people call it short lighting, but really what I want you to really understand is this setup in itself, how to actually apply it. Now, when you place the lights somewhat on that, just keep moving it around. You need to move the lights around. Don't be scared to move the lights around. And you move the light and you find a way to light just that narrow or that short side of the face. That is actually when you've actually created, you know, this scenario called short or narrow lighting. Now, one of the effects of this is that it gives the face like a longer feel. Your face looks narrower and it feels longer in a sense, and it also gives a lot of mystery and drama because less of your face is showing, more of the narrow side is showing, the broad side is really dark. It gives your face a lot of drama, and you know, you can actually use that to your own, you know, benefits depending on the type of story that you're trying to tell. All right, the next one we're going to be talking about is butterfly lighting. Butterfly lighting is the lighting used in portraiture most of the time, where you take the light source and you place it right above the face of the person head on and facing down, like almost like an angle of a 45 as well, straight onto the person's face like that. It creates a shadow under the nose and under the chin that has a shape of like a butterfly, and it's usually called butterfly lighting. In other cases, some people call it paramount lighting. This is because this was a method of lighting that was used a lot in Hollywood, you know, during that era where they lit a lot of their actresses that way. So it's also called paramount lighting. But yeah, most of the time we call it butterfly lighting. It creates a shadow under the nose that gives the shape of a butterfly. It's like a glamour type lighting. A lot of times there's a lot of shadow under the chin and on the nose, which tend to get so dark, and then you can then add a fill under that to bounce some of that light back into the face. When you add that light, it's almost like light coming from the top and light coming from the bottom, like the clamp of like the shell clamp or the clamp of a shell, or when a shell clamps, or you know, yeah, whatever. I'm just trying to tell you that it's also called clamp shell lighting. So just imagine it that way. You have a light coming from the top and you have light coming from the bottom, and then it's like a clamp shell. So when you put the fill light up, it's also, that setup is now then called the clamp shell lighting. But when it's just that, you know, it's still the butterfly setup, but then it's also, you know, also called the clamp shell lighting when you add the fill lights to it. So the butterfly lighting can be used in a lot of beauty setups, in a lot of glamorous looking type headshots, you know, and in portraiture. It gives a very interesting, you know, look to the face. And you can see that as we're taking these light setups one after the other, they create different looks, different feels on the same face, right? So it's something that you want to, that I actually personally find interesting, that I can actually take lights, take it to another angle, take it to another shape, and actually give a different feel to the human face, to give a different feel to my story, to the environment. It's a very interesting thing to do. So you can actually try this yourself. You can use any lights, to be honest. If you're using an iPhone, for example, and you feel like you don't have a light to actually try this, you can grab a touch light and shine it in a bowl, you know, to just give you know, that softness or whatever. You can use your phone light. I've used my phone, like grab the phone, another phone touch light, and shine it to create that effect. So you can actually practice this thing regardless of what you're using, camera, iPhone, whatever. Just, improvise, use anything you have, use anything you find. For example, in the cases of the fill lights, you can use anything that has white on it, or you can carry any big board and put a white bedsheet on it, and then that becomes a white bounce card. The butterfly lighting is when you put the light above the face and it creates a shadow under the nose and under the chin, and gives that look of a butterfly when it creates that shadow. Rembrandt was an artist that was born 15 July 1606. He was a very prolific artist, a very brilliant artist who was considered to be one of the greatest visual artists of the golden era. He actually would paint people, take commissions and paint people, in his studio, and he was a painter basically, and he was one of the most famous painters of his time. He would put people in a room, and in the room where he would put people, he had a high window, and from that high window was where the sunlight would come in. And when the sunlight falls on the person, where he places the person, he would then sit in the corner and paint properly. Now you would see that in most of his paintings, in fact, a lot of his portrait paintings, because of the way the light lit his room then, it would create a triangle on the side of the face, and all of his paintings actually show that style. And then as photography began to evolve over the years, people began to see some of his works, and some people began to admire them, and people began to adopt Rembrandt's style of lighting in actual photography in the modern world. And this style of lighting is where you actually place the light somewhat above your face there, and it's coming down at a 45-degree angle in a way where it creates a shadow. Your nose creates a shadow, and that shadow goes all the way to your cheekbones, and when you get to your cheekbones, there's a shadow there again. So then your eyeballs to then create, your eye socket creates a shadow underneath, and then that shadow also meets with your cheekbones. So it then creates a triangle on that side of the face. If it doesn't create a triangle, all you need to do is to simply move the light or raise it higher, and take it to the side of the subject till you get that triangle. And when you get it, you'll see that you've actually created what you call the Rembrandt lighting. Now in the Rembrandt lighting, you can also still put in fill lights, you can put in backlights, you can build on these lights, but that's the basic structure of what this light setup looks like. Lighting gets a lot more deep and interesting the more you jump into it, the more you dive into it. When you talk about light in terms of the shape, the color, the intensity, the angle, the temperature, I mean, it gets broad. But at this basic level, once you begin to understand these basic light setups, they can help you develop even bigger and more complex light setups. Now, something to note very importantly is that none of these setups are actually rules. They're just best practices in ways that have shown to create a certain type of effect on the individual, on the subject in the image. So somehow you can use them as tools to actually tell your story. There's really no rule to say how you should place the light or how you shouldn't place the light. But when you place the light in these certain ways, these are the certain effects that you would get as a result from placing the light in these certain ways. So these are tools that you need to harness, know how to hold tight, so that can help you then begin to create the effect you want to create, in those stories that you're telling. To give a recap of everything I've spoken about today, first of all, we have the broad lighting, where you light the broad side of the face. And the broad side of the face is that side of the face that shows more of the face as compared to the narrow side that shows less of the face. And the narrow side lighting is where you then take the light and light just the narrow side of the face. The butterfly lighting is where you actually take the light facing the subject directly above them, coming down at about 45 degrees angle, creating a shadow under the nose that gives the shape of a butterfly. And finally, the Rembrandt lighting, where the light goes a little bit to the side of the subject and a lot higher, and then it creates a shadow, or rather a triangle on the other side of the person's face. The nose shadow meets the cheekbone and creates a triangle on that part of the face. What I would love from you is to begin to take some of these light setups, try them on your own, and create portraits using these setups. And when you're done with that, start to experiment with fill lights and add other lights to the elements. So for example, if you have a situation where you've actually lit somebody, say with the Rembrandt lighting, try and add a backlight from maybe from one end, or maybe add it from the other end, or maybe even add it from both ends if you have, that light, or maybe try and add a fill light, just play with that light setup, and you'll see a lot of results that you can actually get from that. I hope this video has been helpful to shed some light on some of the dark areas that you may be having towards lights. I don't know if that even makes sense, but I hope you've learned a lot today with this lighting topic. I know lighting is something that a lot of photographers and a lot of artists need to get a grasp on, and it's something we're learning every single day. So I hope I've been able to express and show and share some of the knowledge that I have on this topic. We're still going to be releasing a lot of videos that talk about lighting, but this is just the beginning of it. So you can check the description. I'll keep updating it, to let you guys know when I release those videos. But to even get notified, please subscribe, comment, and turn on the notification bell so that you can get notified when I release the new videos. My name is Ibukun Williams. See you in the next video. Ciao.